Abandoned at 15. Discover how a heartwarming journey revealed amazing strength I never knew I had. Emily stared at the empty kitchen table, the sun streaming through the window like a spotlight on a stage of loneliness. No breakfast waiting for her, no reassuring voices to wake her up. Just silence. She had been left behind, like a forgotten doll on a dusty shelf, the shattered shards of her heart mirroring the pieces of her childhood that had vanished overnight. No goodbyes, just the echo of the door slamming shut. Maplewood, a town stitched with the love of family and friends, felt like a prison now, walls closing in on her, pressing harder with every passing second. Days morphed into weeks. Emily found herself working at the local diner, a cozy, welcoming place that belied her scattered thoughts. The jukebox crooned old tunes, while the clattering of plates filled the air like comforting chatter. Still, she felt invisible. The old folks who came to sip their coffee rarely noticed the tears threatening to spill over her cheeks as she took their orders. Instead, they exchanged nostalgic stories with one another, leaving Emily to sweep up the crumbs of a life she used to know. With every odd job at the hardware store and moonlit shift at Charlie's diner, something began to shift within her. She learned to push herself, her grit slowly earning nods of respect from regulars, whose warm smiles warmed up the ice encasing her heart. Then there were the veterans who came in, sharing stories of war and hope, reminding her of the strength that lies in unity. Each tale stitched Emily closer to her neighbors, a patchwork quilt of sincerity and understanding beginning to wrap around her. But just as she began to chase away the shadows, whispers slithered through the town. The Harringtons, the wealthiest family in Maplewood, had set their sights on the community center, an essential haven for so many. Emily couldn't believe it. That center had been the heart of Maplewood, where laughter echoed in the hallways, where friendships blossomed like spring flowers. It was now a battleground, and the townspeople were divided. Half seemed concerned for their own interests rather than the community's. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Emily felt a surge of passion ignite within her, a fire fueled by determination. She breathed in deep, her voice trembling but resolute as she rallied her neighbors for a meeting. It felt as if she was standing on a tightly wound spring, moments away from release. "We need to come together," she implored, eyes wide with conviction. "If we don't stand up for what matters, we'll lose it all." The town hall meeting creaked with tension as the room filled faces both familiar and distant, all turning toward Emily. Her heart raced, each beat a reminder that she was finally fighting for something greater than herself. Then, suddenly, a shocking revelation echoed through the hall, casting a shadow of doubt over everything she believed. Would the courage she'd found be enough to save her precious town? Or would it all slip through her fingers like sand? As the nail-biting tension hung thick in the air, Emily stood tall, ready to embrace the battle ahead, bracing for the fight of her life. Emily's heart pounded in her chest as she stepped to the front of the town hall. The air felt electric, charged with a mixture of fear and hope. All those faces, some filled with skepticism, others with support, watched her expectantly. She clenched her fists, pushing back the wave of nerves that threatened to drown her. "I know it's easy to think we can't change anything," she started, her voice gaining strength. "But we have each other, and together, we can make our voices heard." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Some heads nodded hesitantly. Others held expressions mixed with frustration and concern. The Harringtons were powerful, and their influence loomed like a dark cloud over Maplewood. Emily could taste the bitterness of doubt, but she couldn't let it take root. This was more than just a building. It was the town's heartbeat. It was a place for laughter, for gatherings, and a refuge where everyone belonged. "Think about all the events we've had there," she continued, rekindling memories that were tied to the center. "Our summer festivals, holiday dinners, dance classes. It's where we've celebrated each other's lives." Her words spilled out like a river, fueling the fire kindling in the hearts of those listening. Names and faces flashed across her mind: Sweet Sarah's bake sales, old Mr. Thomas teaching the kids how to dance, the warm glow of lights during the holiday season. They were all part of a tapestry that a woman in the back stood up, her voice cracking with emotion. What if we band together? What if we all called the Harringtons out? The room erupted in murmurs. Ideas bounced off one another like fireworks, igniting a shared vision. More neighbors stood to voice their thoughts, their questions merging with the burning desire for unity. Suddenly, one voice cut through the enthusiasm: a man with a sharp suit and a confident demeanor. You really think you can take on the Harringtons? They're not just wealthy, they control most of this town. His words dripped with skepticism, and for a moment, Emily felt a chill run through her. But instead of retreating, she inhaled deeply, her gaze unwavering. Yes, they are powerful, she replied, her voice steady, but they don't own our hearts. We do. Every smile, every friendship, every memory we've built in that community center, they belong to us, and us alone. The energy in the room shifted. A few people began to clap, slowly at first, but then a wave of applause spread like wildfire, engulfing her in warmth. That was the moment she realized her voice was strong. Together, they could face the Harringtons. As the meeting rolled on, plans formed among the passionate crowd. Residents volunteered to gather signatures, distribute flyers, and speak out at the next town meeting. For the first time in weeks, Emily felt hope blooming inside her, lifting her spirit like a flower breaking through the frost. But just as confidence surged, a troubling thought flickered in the back of her mind. What if, in their efforts to stand together, they startled the Harringtons into taking even harsher measures? Her instincts told her that if they were going to win this fight, they had to be prepared. With the meeting ending, Emily gathered her resolve with the others. They lingered outside, hopeful yet anxious. Little did they know, they were walking toward an even bigger challenge ahead. The Harringtons were formidable, but they were about to find out just how far they were willing to go to protect their legacy. As the sunset painted the sky in hues of orange and purple, Emily glanced up, a new determination forged in her heart. What would it take to stand up against a family entrenched in power? Little did she know, the answers she continued to seek were intertwined with her own hidden strength. And somewhere deep down, as she stared up at the vibrant sky, she felt a stirring in her soul, urging her to discover it. What challenges awaited her in the face of the Harringtons? Would the strength she was beginning to unearth be enough to fuel a revolution? Emily walked home, the crisp evening air mingling with excitement and apprehension. Each step felt like a small echo of the defiant beat in her heart. The faces from the meeting replayed in her mind, the variety of expressions reminding her just how much of an impact her words had made. She had sparked something in them, and now they were rallying for change. But shadows lurked in her thoughts. The Harringtons weren't just another family in town, they were a dynasty. Their influence reached into every corner of Maplewood, twisting life like the gnarled roots of an old tree. Did she really have the strength to face them? Could she rally the town against their wealth and power? As she approached her home, the porch lights were still on, casting a warm glow. Her mother, seated on the swing, was lost in thought. Emily felt a surge of gratitude. This home was her sanctuary. She needed her mother to understand the battle she was preparing for, one that would shape their lives. "Mom," she said softly as she stepped inside. Her mom looked up, her brow furrowing in concern when she noticed the raw determination in Emily's eyes. "Are you okay, honey?" Emily took a deep breath. "I spoke at the town hall. We want to save the community center." She explained the meeting and the energy that had crackled among the crowd. She shared the fear, but highlighted the spirit ignited within her. With every word, her mother's expression shifted from worry to pride. "You have such a strong heart," her mother whispered, reaching for her hand. "But be careful. The Harringtons don't play fair." "I know," Emily replied. "But we have to try. We can't just let them erase what that place means to all of us." Mom nodded, but there was a glint of caution in her eyes. "Just remember, some battles are gained in whispers, not shouts. Pick your moments wisely." Emily pondered this as she headed to her room. Those words lingered with her, weaving between resolve and doubt. How could she whisper against a roar that eclipsed their every move? That night, sleep eluded her. She tossed and turned, thoughts racing about strategies and what could go wrong. Her phone buzzed beside her, pulling her momentarily from the torment. It was a message from Jake, one of her good friends from high school who had been at the meeting. "Hey, Em. So proud of you. Let us get coffee tomorrow. I need to talk to you about something important." Curiosity piqued, Emily replied quickly. "Sure. What is up?" "Just something I've discovered about the Harringtons. It could really help us." A knot tightened in her stomach. What could Jake possibly have found? Emily sat up, clutching her phone like a lifeline. Morning arrived, and with it came a renewed determination. She met Jake at their favorite cafe, heart racing with anticipation. When he arrived, he wore an intense expression, his brow furrowed as if the weight of the world rested on his shoulders. "I found something that could change everything," he said, leaning in closer. "But it's dangerous." Emily's heart sank. Dangerous how? As he began sharing hushed details, she could feel the walls of her world shifting again. But would this new knowledge empower them or place them deeper in the path of the Harringtons' wrath? With the stakes suddenly raised, Emily realized she was teetering on the edge of discovery. What would she choose to do with this information? And how far was she willing to go? In that moment of uncertainty, Emily understood. The real battle wasn't just for the community center, it was for her own understanding of strength, courage, and loyalty. As the weight of Jake's revelation hung in the air, Emily felt the thrilling rush of a new challenge heading her way. Would the journey before her lead to liberation or destruction? What was Jake holding back? And where would it ultimately lead them in their fight against the Harringtons? Jake leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "I found something about the Harringtons. It's about their father, Richard. There's a whole lot you might not know." Emily's heart raced. She could feel the pulse in her ears, the world around her fading momentarily. "Like what? Tell me," she urged, her grip tightening on her coffee cup. Jake took a deep breath. "I was looking through some old articles and came across a documentary from when he was starting out. He had some backdoor dealings that don't look too good. And there's talk that some of his fortune isn't, exactly clean." "Are you serious?" Emily gasped. "But he's untouchable. Everyone sees him as the benevolent lord of Maplewood. All the charities, the community events, that's what they want you to think," he interrupted, his brow furrowed deeper. "If this gets out, it could tarnish the whole Harrington name. But someone needs to do it right." A whirlwind of thoughts crashed through Emily's mind. This was the edge she'd been looking for, but at what cost? The weight of their family's legacy could turn against them like a storm. And what if they find out? "We'll be the targets," she whispered, the fear creeping back into her voice. Jake leaned back, shaking his head. "But if we expose this, we could turn the tide. People deserve to know the truth. If the Harringtons are like this, we might have a chance to fight back. We can't just sit back and let them decide our fate." Emily bit her lip, weighing the risks. It felt right, yet deeply terrifying. Could she really go up against someone so powerful? "What do we do?" she asked, her breath shaky as she locked eyes with him. "We gather proof," Jake suggested, his demeanor more focused now. "We need to dig deeper, see if we can unearth any solid evidence. If we can hit them where it hurts, we can show everyone they're not invincible. This could be our chance, Em." The fire of determination ignited in her chest. If she could fight for the community center and everything it stood for, maybe this was the moment they could truly take a stand. "I can't do this alone," Emily replied, her voice steadying. "But if you're in, let us figure this out together." Jake nodded, a firm resolve settling in his expression. "I'm with you. We need to be smart about this, though. If we make a mistake, it could blow up in our faces." Emily thought of the community center, the families it brought together, the events that filled it with laughter and life. "They can't take that away from us. They won tea." A silence hung between them, heavy with unspoken doubts and ambitious dreams. They could feel the stakes rising higher than either anticipated. "But where do we start?" Emily questioned, leaning in closer to Jake, the caffeine buzzing in her system heightening her senses as he began to outline a plan. Emily felt a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. The battle was no longer about one building. It was about fighting for the truth, for Maplewood, for her friends and family, and for herself. They were crossing a threshold that would challenge every aspect of their lives. Outside, the sun began to rise brighter over Maplewood, casting a hopeful glow across the cafe's window. Emily could almost feel its warmth reaching her insides, battling her trepidation. This was it. The moment she feared but craved. What awaited them with the discoveries ahead? Could they bear the truths they might uncover? And would they be prepared for the backlash from the Harringtons? Emily's mind buzzed as Jake continued to outline their plan. Here they were, two unlikely warriors against the towering dynasty of the Harringtons. His tone shifted from uncertainty to unwavering conviction. We need to start with Richard's business ventures and his connections. There are records, tax filings, anything we can get our hands on. She could picture it now. Hidden files, public documents, conversations tucked away in forgotten corners, each clue a part of a much bigger puzzle. But more importantly, those pieces could threaten everything the Harringtons built. Do you think we'll actually find anything? She asked, her heart pounding. Absolutely, Jake replied, a flicker of hope igniting in his eyes. If we dig deep enough, something has to surface. We just have to be careful. They won't hesitate to protect their name. Outside the cafe, pedestrians bustled about, oblivious to the storm brewing in the small corner booth. Emily could hardly swallow the warm, sweet remnants of her coffee. The stakes felt higher than ever. Jake scribbled notes on a napkin, devising a strategy for their investigation. Let us meet up later tonight. I can check the town archives. Who knows what's lying around? You can talk to some local business owners, see if they have anything to say about Richard's early days. People like to gossip. As he spoke, Emily thought about the community. She needed to approach every conversation carefully. One wrong comment could alert someone who had a direct line to the Harringtons. But she couldn't help the flutter of excitement in her stomach. This was change. This was empowerment. By the time she left the cafe, the sunlight was warm against her skin. The streets of Maplewood buzzed with life, but to Emily, they seemed muted. She walked past the community center, its peeling paint and broken swings serving as a reminder of the fight ahead. She couldn't allow that place to fall victim to the Harringtons, or worse, for it to become a mere pawn in their twisted games. Later that evening, the quaint town was cloaked in shadows. A soft wind rustled the trees as she approached the archives. Inside, the smell of old paper and leather bindings filled her senses. The dim lighting seemed to amplify every creak of the floorboards beneath her feet. A pit in her stomach reminded her of the uncertainty lurking around every corner. There, at the back of the room, she met Ellie, the town historian. Faded photos and stacks of documents piled high on her desk. What can I help you with, dear? Ellie asked, adjusting her glasses. Emily's pulse quickened. I'm looking into Richard Harrington. Anything about his early business dealings, anything that might not be public knowledge? Ellie's brow furrowed slightly, but a glimmer of interest sparked in her dull eyes. Rebecca sighed, leaning against the desk, torn between discretion and her own curiosity. You're not the first to ask, you know. What do you mean? Emily steadied her breath, feeling the wall close in. Well, let's just say I've heard rumors about money moving in the shadows. But most of it is hushed, and you didn't hear this from me. Emily leaned closer, hanging on every word. Do you have anything I can look at? A lead? As Ellie scribbled notes, Emily's hope flickered to life. Was this moment the beginning of their fight, or just another dead end? She took the notes with trembling hands, heart racing, the thrill of discovery brushing against her apprehension. But she couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The chilling realization sat heavy in her stomach. What else was lurking, disguised among the whispers and shadows? Were they truly prepared for the reach of the Harringtons, or was this just the beginning of something they'd never be able to finish? Emily stepped out of the archives, her heart still racing from her conversation with Ellie. The biting chill of the night air filled her lungs, but it felt invigorating, a reminder that she was on the brink of something monumental. She glanced around, half expecting to see someone watching her, but the streets were empty. Shadows clung to the corners as the streetlights flickered above, casting an orange glow on the pavement. She hugged the notes to her chest, a mix of excitement and fear coursing through her. Richard Harrington's early dealings, if there was any truth to Ellie's whispers, it could mean significant trouble for the Harrington empire. Emily's breath caught at the thought. The idea that families like hers might finally find a breathing space was thrilling, yet terrifying. Determined to put her newfound information to use, she walked briskly to the diner where Jake had suggested they meet. The bell on the door jingled as she entered, and the familiar smell of fries and coffee wrapped around her like a warm blanket. Jake was already there, hunched over a table with papers sprawled in front of him. He looked up, eyes lighting with excitement as she approached. "Did you find anything?" Emily slid the notes across the table, her hands trembling slightly. Ellie had some rumors about Richard's early business activities. There's something brewing beneath the surface, Jake. We need to figure it out. Jake's eyes widened as he skimmed through her notes. This is gold, Em. If we can find enough evidence, we can really shake things up. The glint in his eyes was contagious, and for a moment, her worries faded. But soon the flutter of hope dulled, replaced by the cold grip of fear. But what if they find out? The Harringtons have eyes everywhere. Jake leaned forward, conviction seeping into his voice. That's why we stay smart. We can meet up during the day, keep it low profile. We've got to be strategic. Emily nodded, her stomach tumbling. The thrill of the chase clashed with the reality of their situation. These people didn't play fair, and losing could mean everything for her family and the community. Hours passed as they made plans, the diner slowly emptying out around them. Their whispers were filled with determination and dread as they plotted their next moves. The weight of destiny lay heavy on their shoulders. As they finalized a timeline for their investigation, Jake paused, a look of peaceful resolution washing over him. "Just remember, no matter what happens, we're in this together," he said softly. Emily felt a warmth swell in her chest. For the first time in a long time, she felt less alone, connecting more with Jake than just as partners in a quest. There was something deeper now, a shared bond that transcended the task at hand. Suddenly, a gust of wind whipped through the open door, sending a shiver down her spine. Her senses tingled as if someone had just walked over her grave. She glanced around, her gaze locking onto a figure standing outside, eyes obscured in shadow. They quickly turned and disappeared into the night. A knot formed in her stomach again. Were they in danger already? Had their secrecy been compromised just hours into their mission? "Jake," she whispered, every ounce of confidence wavering. "I think someone was watching us." He followed her gaze, but the street was silent now. "What do you mean? Did you recognize them?" Emily shook her head, uncertainty swirling in her mind. What if their efforts had already drawn attention? What if their fight wasn't just about exposing truths, but about survival? The stakes felt higher, pressing against her lungs like a weight she couldn't shake. "We have to be careful, Jake. This isn't just a simple investigation anymore," and just like that, a new urgency knotted around their plans. They were headed into uncharted territory, where every step could silence the whispers for good or lead to unimaginable consequences. Could they outsmart a dynasty built on secrets and lies, or were they already in too deep? The next morning, Emily woke up to the hum of the world outside her window. The sun was breaking through the clouds, casting a soft golden light across her room. But even the warmth couldn't chase away the chill that clung to her chest. She had barely slept, tossing and turning, haunted by shadows and doubt that as she lay there. She replayed the events of the previous night in her mind, the tension in the diner still clinging to her thoughts. They needed a plan, stronger than just whispered words and scribbled notes. But what could they do? Emily felt small, facing a giant like the Harringtons. Shaking off her worries, she got dressed and headed to meet Jake at the town library. They had agreed to start their research there, digging deeper into Richard Harrington's past. It was crucial to find concrete evidence, something they could use to break the fortress that was his empire. Stepping into the library, the scent of old books filled the air, comforting yet daunting. The long wooden tables stood empty, waiting for minds eager to uncover secrets. She spotted Jake at the far end, flipping through several dusty archives. His brow furrowed in concentration. He looked up and smiled when he saw her. "Hey, I found some old business records," he said, excitement lacing his voice. "Let us see if there's anything in here that we can use against Harrington." As Emily joined him, they dug into the files, sifting through forgotten documents. Amid pages of mundane transactions, something caught her eye: a mention of a land deal between Harrington and some local families. The transaction was suspicious, a desperate maneuver that hinted at desperation rather than strength. "Jake, look at this," Emily exclaimed, her heart racing. This might connect to the whispers about how he built his empire. What if he coerced these families into selling their land? "Let us not get ahead of ourselves," Jake cautioned, studying the details. "We need a solid link. If we're going to confront him, We can't go in half-cocked. Emily nodded, knowing he was right. But a burning ember of determination flared in her chest. This was more than just investigating a businessman anymore. It was about justice and reclaiming what was rightfully theirs. Their research continued for hours, the room filled with scattered papers and the sound of pages flipping. Just as the clock ticked noon, Emily felt a familiar prickling sensation creeping up her spine. The feeling of being watched. "Jake," Emily whispered, her voice low. "Do you sense that?" Before he could respond, the library door swung open. A figure stepped inside, and Emily's breath hitched. It was Ellie, but her eyes were wide and wild. Pushing the door closed behind her with urgency. "Emily, Jake, you have to listen to me," she said, her voice trembling. "You're in danger. They've found out about your investigation." The very world beneath Emily's feet felt like it was crumbling. "What do you mean? Who has?" "They have eyes everywhere. The Harringtons, they know you're looking into Richard," Ellie gasped, panic painting her features. "If you keep digging, you'll find more than you bargained for." Emily exchanged a worried glance with Jake. They knew the risks, but hearing it from Ellie made it all too real. What was going to happen now? "Ellie, we can't just stop. There has to be a way to protect ourselves. We need to know the truth," Jake argued, his frustration clear. "But at what cost?" Ellie shot back, fear etched in her eyes. "Lives are at stake, including yours." Emily felt her heart racing. Would the thrill of uncovering the Harringtons' secrets cost them everything? As Ellie continued to speak, Emily's resolve hardened. They had to decide. Were they ready to step into the storm, facing whatever consequences awaited them? What happens if we find out we're already too late? She thought, a quiver of uncertainty slicing through her. With their next move hanging in the balance, Emily felt the weight of the moment settle over them like a heavy fog. Would they be strong enough to face the truth, or was the past going to swallow them whole? With breath held tight, she prepared to make a choice that could change everything. Emily's heart pounded in her chest, the weight of Ellie's words hanging thick in the air. Danger. The idea that they were being watched sent a shiver down her spine. She couldn't back down now. The thought of the Harringtons' grip tightening around their lives ignited a fire within her, a fierce determination to push forward. "We need to go somewhere safe. Then," she said, "find out what to do next." Ellie nodded hesitantly, her gaze darting toward the library windows, as if she expected to see the Harringtons lurking outside. There's a diner on the edge of town, less likely to have an ear. We can talk there. Jake grabbed Emily's arm, urgency in his eyes. "Let us go? We can't stay here." They hurried out, the library's hushed stillness giving way to the chaotic hum of the street. As they walked, Emily stole glances back, half expecting a shadow to appear at the diner. They settled into a booth at the back, away from prying eyes. The flickering neon sign outside painted their faces in blues and reds, an uneasy reminder of the panic that churned within. "What if they really are watching us?" Ellie spoke, her voice barely a whisper as she slid into the seat, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. "What if they already know what we found?" Emily took a deep breath, willing herself to stay calm. "We can't assume the worst. Nothing has happened yet. Let us focus on what we do know." She took out the documents they had discovered. "This could be our leverage. If Richard was pushing people to sell their land, that's something we can show others." "Sure, but how do we convince them?" "A couple of records won't bring down a man like Harrington," Jake replied, frustration creeping into his tone. "Maybe not, but it's a start," she insisted. The determination in her voice surprised even her. "People need proof. If we can get more information, if we dig deeper, we can rally the families he wronged. We'll show them they're not alone." Ellie stared at Emily, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. "You're willing to put yourself in danger for this? For some records?" "It's not just records," Emily said fiercely. "It's about our community, our families, everything we've grown up with. We have to fight for it." Jake leaned back, a small smile breaking through the tension. "That's the Emily I know. But we need to be smart about this. We can't act like fools." "Right. But first, we have to lay low. Let this die down a bit," Ellie suggested, glancing cautiously around. "We can regroup in a couple of days, give ourselves a breather." Emily glanced out the window. The town was bustling, life going on as if nothing was wrong. But in that moment, she felt the weight on her shoulders, the immense responsibility not only for herself, but also for Jake and Ellie. They were in it together now, bound by a shared mission. Okay, let us take a break, she replied, still feeling the adrenaline coursing through her veins. But we'll gather more information later. I've got a few old contacts I can reach out to. Ellie raised an eyebrow. Really? People you trust? Emily's heart flipped. Not everyone in the Harringtons' pocket will want to stay there. If we can convince just one person, then we could have a chance, Jake finished, his eyes narrowing. But we have to be careful. If Harrington wants us silenced, he'll go to any length. An uneasy silence settled over them, but it was filled with a burning hope. They would become the voices of their community, the ones who dared to fight. As the waitress approached with their meals, the trio made a pact with their wary smiles. But underneath the surface, tension crackled in the air. Outside the diner, thunder rumbled ominously, as if mirroring the storm brewing within. Emily couldn't shake the looming danger, the realization that they had crossed a line and there was no turning back. She put on a brave face, but in her heart, a pulse of dread throbbed. What if they weren't strong enough to face the storm that awaited them? Sinking her fork into her plate, she wondered just how deep the Harringtons' claws went and how dangerously close they had come to unraveling. Secrets better left buried. But they weren't just searching for answers, they were fighting for their lives. With determination fueling her resolve, Emily took a deep breath. What would they uncover next? And could they withstand the fury headed their way? As they ate, the diner's steady rhythm provided a comforting backdrop, clinking dishes melding with murmured conversations. Still, Emily felt every intention hang heavily in the air, as if the very walls could sense their urgency. She stole quick glances at the other patrons, half expecting one of them to be sent by the Harringtons. Let us talk about our next steps, Jake suggested, breaking the fragile silence that had enveloped them since their arrival. Ellie nodded, her brow furrowed. What if we gathered more evidence? Reached out to people who faced similar intimidation? Maybe if we could find one family willing to share their story, it could spark something like a coalition. Emily felt a surge of excitement at Ellie's idea. Yes, if we could show that this isn't just happening to us, but a pattern. Her voice trailed off as a shadow passed behind her, causing her to stiffen. Did you see that? She asked, voice barely above a whisper. Jake followed her gaze, but the moment had passed. Just a waitress carrying a tray. Focus, he said, trying to ground her. We can't let paranoia steer us off course. Let us carefully map our plan. After they finished, they lingered for a moment, toying with remnants of coffee, the heat swirling between them like the storm outside. It felt like a moment before stepping into battle, every heartbeat a drum roll that propelled them closer to what lay ahead. They slipped out into the evening. The rain had started, drumming softly against the pavement, enveloping them in a misty veil. The streets grew blurring and reflective, their footsteps echoing. Just one more thing, about your contacts, Jake began, his tone serious. Who are they? How deep are they in this? Some were allies during the last big scandal a few years back, the land development fiasco. They saw how the Harringtons operate. If they're willing to talk, it could help us piece together what we're facing. Piece together? Or dig even deeper? Ellie's question had the bite of worry mixed with curiosity. Emily shrugged, her heart caught between excitement and dread. Maybe both? I mean, we can't keep looking at this through a hollow lens. What if there are people who have first-hand experience of what we're going to face? If we find them, maybe we can figure out a way to outsmart Harrington. As they neared the edge of town, where Emily had always been warned against venturing after dark, she hesitated. The shadows were different here. They felt alive, a lurking reminder of the unknown, and yet a calling to what she needed to uncover. Are we doing the right thing? She breathed, fumbling with the thought. I don't want to put us in even more danger. What if they find out? They already know something, but we're not dead yet. That means we can fight, Jake assured her, his voice steady and confident. They turned a corner, and a flicker caught Emily's eye, a figure in the distance, half illuminated by a street lamp. An older man, weathered and hesitant, stood under the light as if waiting for them. Is that? Jake squinted, recognition dawning. Emily's stomach twisted. That's Mr. Wilkins. He used to work for Harrington. If he is here tonight, what is he doing on this side of town? Ellie asked, her unease apparent. Before Emily could answer, Mr. Wilkins stepped forward with a purpose, a message brewing in his weathered expression. Emily, I need to speak with you. It's important. Her heart raced. This was it. This could be the breakthrough they needed, or it could be the trap they'd been fearing. Mr. Wilkins, what do you know? As he opened his mouth to respond, Emily felt a sudden chill. The storm wasn't just the weather anymore. It was engulfing them, and she realized that time was running short. The battle they hadn't wanted was beginning to unfold. Could they trust him? Would he be their ally or their undoing? The answers loomed in the night, just waiting to be revealed. Mr. Wilkins stood before them, an aura of urgency radiating from his hunched shoulders. We need to get inside. It's not safe out here. He cast nervous glances over his shoulder. Emily felt her heart race. What is going on? What do you know? The older man's eyes darted around, his voice barely above a murmur. The Harringtons' word is they're aware of what you're digging into. They're watching your every move. A chilling silence descended, wrapping around the trio tightly. Who told you? Jake pressed, tension coiling in the air. Mr. Wilkins looked around again before responding. I overheard some conversations. They're not just concerned about their reputation, they're furious. You're stirring up trouble that could threaten their entire empire. Emily felt her stomach drop. What does that mean for us? The Harringtons don't play fair. I worked for them too long to know that much, Mr. Wilkins said, his voice strained. You need to tread carefully. If they find out, it won't just be your lives at stake. An electric fear rippled through Emily. What do we do? She asked, battling the tremor in her voice. Mr. Wilkins shifted his weight, his frown deepening. I can help you, but you need to promise to be discreet. It's not just about gathering evidence. I have information about their practices that could expose them. Jake nodded, a flicker of hope igniting in his eyes. Then let us get to a safe space and start mapping things out. With that, they hurried down a twisted alley toward a small back door of the diner they had just left. The diner was now a familiar shell bastion of their hidden plans and covert meetings. Inside, they nestled into their familiar booth, the warmth surrounding them a stark contrast to the frost of dread creeping through Emily's thoughts. You said you can help? Emily began, her heart racing. What do you know? Mr. Wilkins leaned in, fingers steepled under his chin. Richard Harrington, he didn't just climb to the top. He buried those who got in his way. I witnessed things contracts signed under duress, deals made in back alleys where shadows dance with deceit. The gravity of his words pressed down on her like lead. Why didn't you come forward before? You could expose them. His eyes flickered with regret. Fear. Their power is a real threat. I lost everything when I tried to stand against them. But your fight is for something greater. You can't just let them take your community center. Jake leaned forward, eagerness brimming. Okay, so what is our next move? If we can gather proof of these backdoor deals, it's our chance to rally the town. Mr. Wilkins nodded, appreciation flickering across his tired face. Yes, but we must be smart about it. We need documents, testimonies, something rock solid they can't deny. If we're caught gathering this, it's all over before it begins. The three exchanged determined glances, an unspoken agreement passing between them. They were in this together, and in that moment, a fierce hope whirred to life within Emily. Let us start with your contacts, she suggested, glancing toward Jake. Maybe they can provide leads on where we might find more evidence, or help us reach other families who've been harmed. Yes, Jake agreed enthusiastically. If we can connect with those who've suffered and uncover more, we can present a united front. One at a time, Mr. Wilkins cautioned, seriousness back in his tone. This one be quick, and you'll need to keep your eyes open. Watch every step. As they mapped their plan, Emily began to feel the haze of doubt dissipate. Each idea generated shards of excitement surging through her. They were more than just victims. They were warriors armed with the truth, prepared to fight back. Minutes turned to hours as they solidified their plan. Just as they were about to leave, the diner door swung open, and a sharp chill swept in. A figure clad in a dark coat stepped inside, scanning the room. Emily's heart raced. Go, she hissed, urging the others toward the back exit. They hurried out through the kitchen, any lingering fear pushing them into action. Once outside, Emily leaned against the wall to catch her breath. What now? Somehow we need to find a way to keep this from escalating before we're ready, Mr. Wilkins panted. Meet tomorrow morning at my house. We'll dig deeper. As they walked cautiously, heads down, anxiety hung above them like a thick fog. With every step, however, Emily grew sure of one thing. Fear would no longer guide her. Love for her town and her neighbors would ignite her bravery, and a new sun shone brightly over Maplewood the next day, promising clarity and new beginnings. The world felt different, charged with purpose. But as they approached Mr. Wilkins's house, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that danger lingered close. Would they uncover Harrington's secrets? And if so, at what cost? She knew getting through this wouldn't just be a test of their resolve. It would redefine unity within a divided town. Determination surged within her, pushing her forward. The storm would come, but they would stand together. This was their town, their fight, and they would reclaim it no matter what it took. And as she knocked on Mr. Wilkins's door, she felt a sense of belonging, of purpose. They were a collective force against the darkness that threatened to swallow them whole. Now, as the loud, pulsing life of Maplewood surrounded them, she whispered a vow deep within her heart. They would not back down. Together, they would shine a light on the truth, reaching for hope as their guiding star. Now this was just the beginning. If you found Emily's journey inspiring, you need to subscribe now to catch the next installment of our stories about courage and transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, which helps spread these powerful tales. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear about standing up for their community. Comment your thoughts about this ending. Your feelings matter. Let's make a difference together.